hello everyone. Hope everyone is doing well today. My name is Joanne Remy and I am part of the NCBC Board of Governors and I am from California Central. And on behalf of the NCBC, thank you for joining and welcome to the virtual session of The Art of Possible. Just a few housekeeping rules. We're recording, so please make sure you keep yourselves on mute. If you have any questions, feel free to use the reaction tab on the bottom to raise your hand, or I believe you have option to type in the chat and we'll pay attention if there are questions typed in there. And I believe that should be it. Oh, and also the session will be on the NCBC's website sometime next week. All right. All right, Patrick, take it away.
All right. Thank you. Can you hear me coming through?
Yes.
All right. That's good. Well, thank you very much and welcome everybody. Welcome to the Art of Possible. My name is Patrick Cohane. Been a trainer for about 20 years out here in California, Florida, Virginia, New Mexico, training for Marriott, Radisson, Walt Disney World. I've been around. Usually focus on things like Excel, PowerPoint, Word, computer software, but I've also trained in other areas. And now I'm out here, California Central Bankruptcy Court, Los Angeles, and we're going to be talking about the art of possible. What is the art of possible? And we'll, go in depth a bit about what goes behind it. Also, I am the IT and training manager out here at California Central. You can see my contact information on the slide. So after this session, if you want to contact me, feel free to send me an email and I will respond back to you. All right, so the art of possible. We have the tools, but what are the possibilities? What is the art of possible itself? Well, simply the art of possible is just a training series and it focuses on different items. It originally started with software and different tools that you could use in the court. And it was what was possible to be used with these tools, with the software. I've been training classes, as I said, Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and usually I'll have a 3-hour session called Word Level 1 or Basic Word, Intermediate Word, Advanced Word, and same with Excel and so forth. And if you show somebody a list and it says, hey, this is Excel Level 2, it's 3 hours, they may or may not be that interested. They might say, well, I need to know Excel, but I don't know if I have 3 hours. Or, what's in the class? Do I really need some of those things? Maybe I only need one item. So what the Art of Possible was made to do was to focus on one of those items and bring out a tool. And instead of having a 3-hour class, it would just be something short and it would just focus on that one item. It would break it down into relatable scenarios and solutions. So instead of me saying, hey, come out to Excel Level 2 where you'll learn how to sort things and put in some advanced formulas or link items together, I might just simply say, hey, I've got a 15-minute session. It's online, and it just deals with using a formula to link one Excel spreadsheet to another. And then people would say, hey, I do want to learn that. I do need to know how to do that. And they don't have to sit through an entire class. They just come in and they learn that one item. So that's what the art of possible is. It's basically what is possible with the tools we already have. And it could be used because maybe new software came out, or maybe there's a new tool in software, such as Microsoft Word and Office like Outlook got the dictate tool. So we had a session on that so people could see, well, what is this dictate tool and can they use it? So that is what the art of possible happens to be. It's just a training series itself that shows people what is possible with the tools they have in front of them. Now, how is this training handled? And it can be handled in different ways. At our court itself, we usually have it online, either using Teams or Zoom, such as we're doing Zoom right now. We might also use, we used to use Skype for Business, and also there's WebEx out there. So different people have different ways to launch their training online. Could it be done live instead of online? Of course. The only thing is, usually these are short trainings, so you may not want people to come into a classroom or a training room if they're just going to sit there for 10 or 15 minutes. But online, it's pretty easy for people to just get on the computer and log in, listen to the short session, and then continue with their day there. Audio is usually done over the computer, or it can be done over a phone, depending on what software is being used. Zoom has a call-in number. Teams can be set up with a call-in number. WebEx has a call-in number. So originally, it started out with just audio being done over the phone. But nowadays, with the video conferencing things that we have, people can just listen at their desk, either through their computer or through their phones. And every session that we do, we usually will record. Because not everybody can make 1 or 2 sessions that are given on a day. And so we record the sessions and we make it available to everybody in a training library, and we track who goes and watches those sessions so they can get credit for it later. So if they were in the live session or if they watch a recorded session, they can still get credit for the training itself. Also, the Art of Possible was not just the training, but things leading up to the training and also things that back up the training. So you have the possibilities of the tools or the software or a way of doing something that you want other people to know, and you have the training on that, but you also have maybe an article in the newsletter where you basically go through what the item is, what the tool is, and how people can use it. Because people learn in different ways. Some learn by listening, some learn by seeing, some learn by reading. So you have an article in the newsletter letter. You might also send out an email blast with information on the item. You have the training itself. There's the video so people can watch it later if they want to re-watch it again in case they missed something the first time. You have a handout to go with it too. So basically you give them several different options of learning, seeing and understanding what this item is, what is possible with this item. Now, most of the trainings that we've done with the Art of Possible follow what I used to call the T-15 model, which is a model that I created many years ago here with the California Central Bankruptcy Court. And it basically does what we've been just sort of discussing here, that we have short 10 or 15-minute trainings. Usually the trainings are about 15 minutes long, but nobody complains if it goes only 10 minutes. Nobody ever complains if training is shorter than you say it's going to be. So if you say, hey, it's a 15-minute session and it only ends up like 14 or 13 or even 10 minutes, no one's going to call up and say, hey, this was too short. I want you to go back and give me 3 more minutes. So they were short little sessions. T-15, it basically just took the name from, rocket launching into space. You have T-10 seconds or T-15 minutes here. And it was training in under 15 minutes. Students could attend from their desk. So you didn't have to be anywhere special. You didn't have to go to any room. You could be at any location and you could still attend the training. You would just be at your desk, log into the web link, and then you would be on here like you guys are today with Zoom. Attendees wouldn't have to be away for any length of time. They don't have to disappear for a few hours. Usually the sessions themselves were offered during lunch. So we'd have one at 12 o'clock and then one at 12:30. So you'd have 12 to 12:15, 12:30 to 12:45. People could attend the session and they could learn something. And while they were once again having lunch at their desk, or just before, just after lunch, they might be able to just swing by, watch the session, partake in it, and then they could go back to their day there. When the sessions are short like that, one important thing is to hold off on questions, because if people ask a question in the middle of a session, it might be one of those things that gets longer and longer with the kind of questions somebody might ask. They might say, oh, here's a question. Oh, how about this? And how about this? And then maybe somebody else chimes in with a question. And before you know it, you're already hitting 20 or 25 minutes. So the questions itself in a short session, such as these 10 to 15 minutes, would just be, okay, hold your questions at the end. Once the session is over, anybody who wanted to leave could. Anybody who wanted to ask a question or at least hear what the questions were could stay on the line. And that way you still had a little bit of time. You didn't interrupt the session. The session could still be recorded, put online, and then you would have questions, whatever they asked afterwards. You had more time to spend with them. You didn't have to worry that people might be dropping out before the end of the presentation there. So this, once again, was just a T-15. It was just short training sessions, 15 minutes or less, all done online, didn't have to go anywhere, attend from your desk, just get in, get out, and then you move on with your day, and questions were just saved at the end. And the Art of Possible took this. Now, not all of the Art of Possible classes are only 15 minutes long. Some are longer, 45 minutes, whatever, but they were designed, once again, based on this model that we used to use. And now it's what is possible. Let's focus on something with this tool or with this way of doing anything. So how are these sessions broken down? It's very simple. And this doesn't matter whether it's a 10-minute session, a 15, an hour session. This is pretty much anytime you've done training, this is something that you might want to use as your breakdown for training a class. Even if you don't do training too often, or maybe I'm just training one person, this is usually a good idea to do. The first thing is just to introduce yourself in the title of the presentation. Hi, I'm Patrick Cohane. Welcome to the Art of Possible. Then you might want to talk about the benefits of using whatever the tool is or the method. Well, this is going to be a training series where you can see how to make training classes yourself or design training. Even if you're not a trainer per se by trade, you might be, oh, I'm just in operations here, I'm just in administration, I'm not in the HR, the training department. That doesn't matter. You can still use these to create short little trainings. Then you go through what the steps are for accessing this tool or this method, the way of doing things. And then you come back and summarize what you just covered. A lot of times this will be referred to as the 3 T's in training. You tell them what you're going to tell them, then you tell them, and then you tell them what you just told them. So it's the 3 T's. So you introduce yourself, you tell them what's going to be coming up, then you tell them about the thing, explain it, and then you tell them what you just told them. So right now we're sort of in the step where I'm telling you what the Art of Possible is, being the training series and how it's broken down. And then at the end, we'll have a little summary probably where I'll just go back through and discuss, okay, and this is what we talked about in this session here today. And then at the very end, once again, ask for questions. Now, in the session we're doing right now, we have about an hour and a half. So if you do have questions, you don't have to save them to the end. If you have a question, you could just raise your hand in Zoom or put in a comment. Joanne, if she notices it, she'll call on you. Or if I notice, I'll call on you too. So don't worry about waiting to the end for questions. You can ask them throughout this presentation. But these shorter sessions, the Art of Possible sessions, the T-minus 15 sessions, they would have the questions saved to the end. Once again, just because they were short, didn't want to interfere with the length of the actual training, and then everybody could ask their questions afterwards, so people could either stay or leave, depending on how they felt there. All right. Is everybody feeling okay so far? Everyone feeling all right? Does anyone have any questions, or shall I say, what questions do you have so far? I see a thumbs up, so I think at least April's doing all right. Yeah, you go, April. You go with your thumbs up there. All right. Now everybody's going to look at the participant list to see who is that. Okay. So I had mentioned that we would do these online, once again, because we could reach everybody. One of the reasons we had to do them online was we have 5 different divisions spread out in several different areas. So we had about 200 or so employees. And when I first started training, I would drive out to the different divisions. But once you get into these shorter sessions where it's only 10, 15 minutes, it doesn't make sense to drive out to a division about 90 miles or, maybe 180 miles round trip there just to talk for 10 minutes and then get back in the car. So we started doing these online to make sure we were reaching everybody and anybody could tune in. Now, the 2 main items you might use today would either be Zoom or you might use Teams. We're using Zoom right now. Right now we're doing the discussion on Zoom, and there's things like recording and so forth that makes it very easy to use this. And a lot of people are used to Zoom by now. If you have kids who went to school, a lot of kids probably use Zoom to attend their classes. In the last year, everybody was using Zoom because you couldn't do anything else. With Zoom, you need to have some kind of an account to do the training. Now, you could have a basic account, which gives you about 40 minutes of time on your session, or you can buy a licensed account, which gives you unlimited time. The basic account also limits you to, I'd have to double check on it, but it doesn't give you a whole bunch of people. It might be about 50 to 100 people that you can have if you have the basic account. If you have the licensed account, you can go for a few more, maybe, I think it's up to about 300, but don't quote me on those. I'd have to double check to see. So you need some kind of an account with Zoom. You'd have to create an account ahead of time. Now, the nice thing about Zoom is people can view it from anywhere. As long as they have internet access, they can take the Zoom link, log in, and then they can see the session itself. They do need to have speakers and a microphone if they want to interact, or maybe a headset, or they could just have speakers if they just need to listen, but they don't need to talk. And then they can use the chat feature and so forth if they do have questions. You can record the video, as we're doing right now, in Zoom, and that's pretty easy. And then it'll save it either locally for you, or you could save it on the cloud. And then you can go back later and edit the video in case there's a little extra at the beginning, a little extra at the end. So you can take care of that later. Zoom allows you to listen in through the computer, which I'm sure most of you are doing, or it gives you a call-in number too. So people who are driving in the car or just don't have audio on their computer, they can use their phone, they can call in and they can still listen to the Zoom session as it comes through. So that's a nice thing to have, depending. And like I said, when we first started these sessions, most people were doing it at their desk, so they didn't have speakers or microphones because they were sitting in cubicles near other people. So you weren't really going to be turning up speakers and listening. So people would call in on their telephone and they would listen that way. Zoom also can have a meeting request set up through Outlook. You could either do it through Zoom itself and go into your Zoom app, or go into Zoom online, in our case, Zoom Gov, because we're the government, or Outlook can have it. And you can sort of see here, I have my little Outlook toolbar, I copied it. And right here is the Zoom tools where you could schedule a meeting and then you can invite people to that meeting. And then they will get it and they can put it on their Outlook calendar once they receive that invitation. And then when it comes to the time for that session, they can just go to that meeting request on their calendar, open it up, and then they could attend the session. Teams is also another way to do it. Right now, Teams is basically available to everybody who has an Office 365 account. So this pretty much should be everybody in the judiciary. So anyone who has an Office 365, Word, Excel, Outlook, they also have access to Teams. As I mentioned, we used to use Skype for Business, but then that got deprecated and removed and Teams replaced it. Teams is mainly for people who are on the DC end, basically the judiciary's network. You can bring in people from the outside, but it's mostly people who are just within the court's network itself, the judiciary's network, whereas Zoom can be for people all around the world. Doesn't matter where they are, doesn't matter who they work for, they can attend. Teams mostly is going to be for internal types of training there. But with Teams, you can also record a video just like with Zoom. And there's also Microsoft Streams out there where you can take your Teams video and you can upload it to Microsoft Streams. So you could actually share it with other courts very easily. You can say, hey, this is on Streams. Go and take a look at it. You can view it and you can share that with anyone, or you could just keep it local. So it's just your organization can view it. We usually take the videos that we do and we don't put them just up for anybody. We'll put them within our learning management system. So we'll make a video, load it up to the learning management system. And that way people can come and when they view it, we can keep track of who actually saw it there. You can have audio go through the computer in Teams, or you can have a call-in number. Now, the thing about Teams and a call-in number is that has to actually be requested. It has to be requested, and only a few people at a court would have the call-in number available to them. So it's not something that everybody will get. I'm one of the people at my court who can have a call-in number. So if I do a Teams meeting, I'll be able to have people call in if need be. Zoom just does that part automatically, though. So in that case, Zoom might be a better option if you're not sure if people are going to be in the court itself. They might be somewhere else. They might need to call in. But if you do have Teams and you are one of the people who has a call-in number available to you, then you can use either of those methods. And just like in Zoom, Teams also does a meeting request in Outlook. So I can go to my Outlook calendar on the Home tab, and I can say I want to do a new Teams meeting, and then also WebEx out there. More of us used to have WebEx accounts, but a lot of the WebEx accounts were sort of removed recently. The judiciary is moving away from them, but there's still going to be some people who have those, and WebEx is fine. That's how we started off. Before we did Skype for Business, we used to use WebEx and do all our training that way. There's other online training options you can use, other videos, other ways, or if you might have a video conferencing system set up at your court, you could do it that way. Just set up a video conference. You just sit there with a remote camera and log into the video system, and everyone can attend that way, just like if they're in meeting rooms, and you can handle it that way. The only thing with video conference systems, you may or may not be able to record the session through those. So that would be something you would have to check on if you wanted to do that. So once again, this is just different ways that the session might be broadcast to others. But like I said, if you want to do it live, you can do it live, especially if it's going to be a longer type of meeting. Once again, it's going to focus though on the tools that are available through the software or through the method that you found. Like, hey, I found a better way to do some kind of filing. All right, well, let me share that with others so we can all see how to do that. So how are these topics chosen? How does somebody come up with one of these items and shares it? Well, the topics themselves come from many sources. They come from anybody in the court, anybody at all. It could be that we have new software that we've just gotten and we want to show people just some basic features about it. Or it could be the software that we've been using has some features that nobody knows about or just got new features in it. I mentioned a little while ago, Microsoft Office started with the Dictate tool. And the Dictate tool allowed people to actually talk to their computer and have it printed up on the screen. So Microsoft Word, Outlook, you could start just dictating what you wanted to it. So that was a new tool. And so we had a little Art of Possible on that to show people how to use that tool if they wanted to. But we also have had people who've used programs such as OneNote, and they've used it for operations to keep track of schedules and memos. And they've asked, hey, can we talk about it? We use it a lot. People ask us, well, how do you use it? So we would like to do one of these trainings and share it with everybody. So instead of people asking us all the time, they can view the training. And so we brought them on. We also had a judge. He was also using OneNote, and he wanted to show other judges and law clerks how he uses OneNote during his trials. So his session went a little bit longer there. It was about 45 minutes, but that was his idea. It doesn't have to come from the training department. Sometimes the IT department is like, hey, you know, everybody in the court needs to know how to do this on their computer, so we don't have to keep telling them again and again. So let's set up a training about that. Once again, we record it so people can't attend the first time, can go back to it, or at the same time, they can just review it as often as they want. And users, they may have a tool they found that might think is a benefit to others. They have a method, something they might think helps out others. How to do project management, you know, just a short thing on how teaching people how to manage a project. And not a lot of people think, oh, I'm going to be a project manager, but many times you become a one for small projects. And it's a good idea to have at least some kind of project management skills. So that came in very handy for people throughout the court. And even if you're not going to be a project manager, it's still a good idea to know that kind of responsibility or that kind of method of how to run a project. So these are things, once again, short, chosen by different people at the court. They come up with the idea, and then we talk about it and we put it together for them or assist them if necessary, or they just put it together themselves. CUEs also might have topics. So the court unit executives, they may have topics that they feel are necessary for everybody to know how to do. Several years ago now, we wanted to know or wanted to make sure everybody knew how to use JPort to remote into the computer, just in case for some strange reason we needed to do remote access to our computers. So we had sessions on that, and they were the same thing. They were about 10 minutes long, just showing people how to get into JPort, how to attach to their computer, and how to do their work. So that actually came in very handy when this pandemic thing started too, showing people how to remote in and access their systems. So these are ideas. They come from different areas, different places, different people. It's not just, oh, it has to be the training department or it has to be human resources. It could be anybody, operations, administrations, IT, doesn't matter. Anybody can do it. Doesn't mean that that person necessarily has to be the one who is the presenter, but it's actually usually a good idea if they are. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. So topics can come from anybody who has an idea, who thinks it can be helpful to other people around the court. And then it's brought up, talked about, and then put together and then launched. So what are some of the topics? Now, I've mentioned a couple of these, but here's a list of a few topics. Outlook calendar tips. When Outlook came out and we switched over from Lotus Notes, that was a very popular thing for people to come in and learn, well, how do I do Outlook? And we actually had several different Outlook items. One was Lotus Notes versus Outlook, which was just a 15-minute class. showing people, okay, this is where you did it in Lotus Notes. This is where you find it in Outlook. And this is how you can send a message. This is how you go to your calendar. This is how you can take your messages, set up rules so things can go to certain folders. So that was one of our trainings. Outlook calendar tips were set up because now people who used to book rooms for meetings didn't know how to do it in the new program. They knew how to do it in Lotus Notes, but they didn't know how to do it in Outlook. So we went in, and once again, another short training there showing them how to take an appointment on a calendar and make a copy of it, how to book a room, set up a meeting request, and also seeing multiple calendars. Because a lot of people would have, oh, I have my calendar, but we also have the court calendar, or I have my, I'm an administrative assistant, and I need to have my my clerk's calendar too, so I can see what she's doing. And we showed them how to have 2 or more calendars on their screen, or even overlay them. And that was all just done, short little training. Didn't spend a lot of time on everything because we were just focusing on like 3 to 4 different topics in that 15 minutes. Also had a little handout there. Sharing your screen with Teams. Originally, this was sharing your screen with Skype for Business, but then when we switched to Teams, we just revamped it. And it was just so people could see, oh, if I have Teams and I have a chat set up, I want to share my screen there so people can see what I'm doing. It comes in handy if you're trying to do a little training and just show somebody one thing, or maybe you're having a problem and you're trying to explain it to the other person, and it's easier if they see your screen, so they can be like, oh, hey, let me click on this, or, oh, you're missing this on your screen, look over here. So it was a way for different people in the court to be able to assist each other without having to rely on someone just saying, yeah, this is what I see on my screen, because they could actually see it. So we showed people how to share their screens. Using OneNote for procedures and calendaring. That's one of the things I mentioned was the operations staff. 2 of our people, our operations staff from our Riverside division, they wanted to discuss how they used OneNotes in their daily tasks. So other people in operations could also use the OneNote in the same way they were. Because a lot of people, when OneNote first came out, most people were like, I don't know what it is, I'm not going to utilize it. And a few people took some training that I offered. It was, once again, 3-hour training. They learned how to use it, and they found nice ways for them to file memos or schedules where they could easily just do a quick search through OneNote and find all their information. So if someone said, hey, wasn't there a memo about a new dress code, they could go to their OneNote, type in the dress code keyword, and they would show up any memo or anything in their OneNote that had to do with a dress code. So they could find it simply instead of searching through tons and tons of email there. So they were operations staff, no training or no training background, I should say. They just knew how to use the program, and they wanted to show others how to use it. So they had their shot. And then how to organize your next trial, that was by one of the judges. And he did a 45-minute session. You never say no to a judge, never say you got to keep it to 15 minutes. Like I said, it doesn't have to be 15. Most of these are shorter sessions just to make sure people can attend quickly, learn 1 or 2 little things, then move on. But the judge wanted to show more things. He had a lot of stuff he wanted to discuss, showing law clerks and other judges how they did exhibits and registers and pretrial orders and trial notes, and how they shared those, and how if they updated it, like if he was on the bench and he updated his notes right there, his law clerks who are back in chambers or even working remotely now could see the updates right away, and they could respond back or make changes as necessary. So these are just some of the topics. We've had a bunch of topics over the last few years. And like I said, these are just a few of them. Now, does anybody have any questions, or what questions do you have? I'll just take a short stop here, take a breath, in case anybody has anything they want to ask. You can either raise your hand or type it in the chat. I'm guessing that's a no. That's fine. We'll continue on.
Patrick.
Oh, what? Was there a question?
Questions.
All right. Do you have a question, Joanne? No.
I do not.
All right. All right. We will continue on then. Okay. But like I said, you don't have to wait to the end. Feel free to ask questions or put them in the chat if you don't want to just ask them out loud, or just raise your hand there. Okay. So these are just, like I said, just a list of some of the different topics that we did, but we had a whole bunch more. So who coordinates the training? How is this training coordinated? usually, even though it doesn't have to be done by HR or the training department, the HR or training department will still coordinate the training. It wasn't just anybody could have any idea and suddenly say, hey, I'm doing a training, everybody attend my training. It would still have to be coordinated. And so it'd be put on the training calendar so people would know when it was coming up. And then announcements could be made either through email or in a newsletter, the court's newsletter. So HR or the training department would still promote it, and they would also track it. So it would have to be set up in the court's learning management system. That way, the people who attended live could get credit for it, or people who attended the recording and watched that, they could also get credit for the training. At our court, you're supposed to attend at least 4 hours of training a year, unless you're a manager, we're at 6 hours. So you want to make sure that any training you do does get recorded there. Registration is also good and recommended for these online sessions, or even if you have in-room sessions. This way, if people register ahead of time, you know who's going to be there, how many people are going to be there. You can send them material before the session begins. You send them the link to the session, so either Teams link or Zoom link, so you have all their email, send that to them. And in some cases, as I mentioned, when we first started doing these, not everybody had speakers or headsets. Now pretty much everybody at the court has a headset with us. But originally, people didn't. They'd be sitting at their desk and they either didn't have speakers or microphones, so they couldn't ask questions, or they couldn't hear through the computer, so they'd have to call in. And we would set up conference lines for these, but the trouble was we would have a limit on how many people could be on the conference line. Usually we were told we had maybe a limit of about 21 people on ours. It could be increased if necessary, but usually it was about 21 people. So by having people register ahead of time, you made sure you did not have too many people on the call, so not everybody could call in. And if this is something that's going to be done in a training room, of course, you want to have people register so you know if you have enough seats in that training room too. Now, the session, like I said, it can be added to a calendar. If there's a court calendar for training, or an HR calendar for training, or emails can be sent out saying, hey, here it is. Here's a link to register for the training. And then after they register, later on, they'll get a link to the team session or the Zoom session, and they'll get the material that they'll be like a handout, whatever goes along with the class itself. Now, also, after the offering has ended, the training coordinator can mark down who's attended through a learning management system. So they get the credit, like I said. But that's sometimes a little difficult because you don't have a sign-in sheet. So in this session here, there's a whole bunch of you out there who are attending this, but there's no sign-in sheet to say that you've actually attended. So I can't really send that around. So what we would do is the training coordinator or the presenter would just take a screenshot of the participant list. And that way we would have all the names of the people there. And usually we would take several different screenshots throughout the training. So you take one maybe near the beginning, one about halfway through or so, because not everybody's going to be logged in at the beginning. Some people are going to be late. So you want to take it like not right at the beginning, maybe a few minutes in, and then maybe a second time, if possible, about like 30 minutes in or so, or well, these are only 15-minute trainings or 10 minutes trainings. So you might want to do it maybe about halfway through just to make sure you don't miss anybody there. And also when the video recordings are available to staff, well, how are they going to be made available and who's going to let the staff know? So if I'm just a person like working in administration, I'm an assistant, and I want to do some training, I may have recorded the session, but then, well, how do I get that out to the rest of the staff who haven't been able to attend the live session? So that's once again why it has to be coordinated either through HR or training department or by one particular person who is assigned as a coordinator for this kind of information. You could put your stuff in a learning management system as we do. You could upload it to a private YouTube channel. You could connect the private YouTube channel to the learning management system. It doesn't really matter as long as somebody is doing it and knows where the things are, where the links are, who's getting credit for it, and just keeps track of that. So that's how the training itself is coordinated. You could do it any way you want. Once again, we usually we had a training department and an HR department. So our training department was the one who was tracking it and coordinating it. But for some places, it's just a single person. It could be a manager, it could be a supervisor, it could be HR. It all depends on your court there. Okay. How about some branding, some marketing? How do you get the word out? How do people know about this kind of stuff? Well, I mentioned a few times you want to send out some announcements. You say, hey, there's a new series for training. A new training series is going to be available, and that can be sent out in email blast. And it could be like small little email blasts at different times. Like if we're going to launch this training in June, maybe we start out sending things in March. Just simply say, hey, there's a new training coming up. Keep your eyes out for the next few months. Look for the Art of Possible, or whatever you want to call your training series there. And you send that out. And then in April, you send another one with a little update about the training series. Oh, in our training series, the Art of Possible, you're going to see topics such as this or this or this. And then maybe, come in May, you get another one, Art of Possible is coming. We're going to have send out a list of signups coming up. These are going to be short classes. This is what the Art of Possible is. Short online classes you can attend from your desk. You don't have to worry about wasting hours in a class. You can learn that one topic right there at your desk during lunch and then get back on with your day. In addition to the email blasts, you could put articles in the newsletter. So if you have a court newsletter, you put an article about what is the Art of Possible, what is going to be covered, and maybe even interview one or two people who are going to be doing the presentation. Like, oh, well, Joe here is going to be discussing how to do this in operations. And then Mandy here, she's going to be discussing how to do this with this new software that we've seen. And you could have have them talk a little bit about that, put that interview in the newsletter. Some people even have a sort of an online video, like we tried CACB TV a few years ago, California Central Bankruptcy TV, which was a video series to talk about new things coming out in training. That did not last long, but it was at least an attempt. So some people actually have that where they keep it up, and maybe every Monday they have a short video video sent out for everybody to watch, a recording there where they could discuss this. Say, hey, keep your eyes out. There's a new training series coming, short little classes, take it at your desk and learn some topics that are of interest to you. Now, the short live sessions would give people an easy way to attend and ask their questions. And the recorded sessions would give them a chance to, once again, review it, or people who could not attend at that time to see what was happening. Usually in the recording, we would leave the questions in at the end so people could see, well, what questions came up, because a lot of times people might have the same question as somebody who was in the session. So usually anytime I taught these and I said, okay, that's the end of the session. If you want to stay on and ask questions or listen to the questions, please do. And usually nobody would leave. Everybody would stay on to listen to the questions, because they might have the same question, or it might be something they hadn't thought about. And it turns out to them, oh yeah, I should know that. That's something I would like to know. So they would stay on there. And another thing is to give it a catchy name, a tagline, a little logo there. You can see down here on my screen, I've got the name of the session, the Art of Possible, the series, I should say, the Art of Possible. And then here is a little tagline. We have the tools, but what are the possibilities? The name itself came from our Chief Deputy Administration. He came up with the Art of Possible, and I came up with the little tagline. We have the tools, but what are the possibilities? And then this little guy here, let me bring this in a little bit larger. This was designed by one of our court staff too. She's a graphic artist there, so she designed the little light here with the rainbow thing and the logo for it. So this was just this one part here, just this one part here was 3 different people at the court. Art of Possible by one person, tagline by another, graphic art here, little logo by a third person. So it's not necessarily one person in charge of all this. Once again, it's several people. What is the possibility? What can we do with what we know? And so we are focusing on one item, 2 items, 3 items, something short, and you're saying, this is what we have. You may not know about it, or you may not know how to do it this way. Well, here it is. These are some possibilities for you. And you got a little tagline, you got a little logo. And so the logo would go in all the emails that we sent out. When people saw new training coming out, the logo would be there. And you could even have a contest if you wanted. If you have your own training series you want to make, a little contest, someone can design the logo, people can write in, see what they want, and, see who wins. And everybody would be like, hey, that's my logo. I made that. Okay. This is just a simple registration email, just to show you, like, it was sent out to people. It was sent out as a meeting request, and so they could accept it, and it would go on their calendar. It would also go onto my calendar to let me know who was going to be attending the session. We would include the handout for them, so they could say, oh yeah, this is how to use the dictate tool in Office, and this was a little handout. And just to show you here, here's like the handout that would be given out to them. I'll zoom in a little bit. So it's just using the dictate tool in Microsoft Office, and this is the tool that's available to them. And we just show where that tool was in Microsoft Outlook and in Word, and show them how to turn it on, make sure they were using the proper language there. And it would also tell them how to add punctuation when utilizing that tool. So that itself would be the email that went out, would have the handout with it, would tell them right in the email, you're scheduled for this session, and call in with the number below, or if they have audio on the computer, they could use that too. So these, once again, would just be sent out to all the people who had registered ahead of time for the class. Now, is this something that would be internal or external to the court? When we started, we did it internally. It was just for the people in the court, just for our staff. We wanted to show them new features that we had in software, or new ways to do something with CM, or how to do docketing in some different way, or use this software so they could make their day easier to look up calendars or memos very easily. But now it's actually grown, and we have a slightly different series for the public known as Art of the Possible. Notice the word "the" in there. So it's not just Art of Possible or the Art of Possible, it's Art of the Possible. And that's our sort of way to tell which is the internal one and which is the external one. Art of the Possible demonstrates how to use like Zoom in a courtroom for lawyers and the public. So we have several different training videos, and those aren't 15 minutes. They're actually much shorter than that for the most part. They're just simple training videos so lawyers and the public can see, well, how do I use Zoom to attend a session at the court? And we're designing those also for coming back to the court using what's known as our hybrid courtroom, where some people are on Zoom, some people are in the court itself, how to utilize the microphones or share information during the court itself, either online or being there live. So it doesn't matter. It could start off internal, but it could also be used as external. You could use the same name, doesn't really matter. We just made the name slightly different just so we knew, okay, this one's the internal sessions, and these ones are the external sessions or videos or recordings, whatever it might be. And the external ones are done by people who do different things throughout the court. It's, once again, not the training department. It's just regular people, like one's the administrative assistant to the chief deputy, another is an analyst, another is our COOP coordinator, another is from the AV team, and they just go ahead and they make the videos, put them together, edit them, and make them available on YouTube for the public to be able to view. And then an email blast is sent out to the lawyers, or something is put on the court's website to say, hey, if you want to come into the court or attend a Zoom trial, here's some information you might want to know. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions so far? Anybody? What questions do you have? All right. I'm going with no other questions at the moment. All right. Now here are some tips when doing a class like these short Art of Possible classes. And these tips themselves can also go for just regular training. It doesn't have to be online for the most part. It could be any type of training you're doing. The first one is just to, if it is online, ask attendees to log in early to make sure that they can actually connect, usually like a few minutes before the session. This is actually something that no one ever does. A few people will do. Most people won't. Most people will do it like right when the session is beginning, or even a few minutes after the session begins. But you want people, if you can, to get them to log in ahead of time. One of the reasons for that is if they do have trouble, they're going to contact you. They're going to call you or send you emails or text messages or whatever it might be to say, hey, I can't connect. What do I do? And if you've already started the session, well, you can't answer those things. You can't help them, especially if it's a short session. If you stopped and said, oh, wait, everybody, I've got to help this person log in. Well, you might just use up several minutes of that like short session. So you want people to try to log in ahead of time. So if they do have an issue, you might be able to help them, or maybe somebody else is made available to help them. Such as right now, if someone had a question, they could put it in the chat and maybe Joanne could help them instead of me looking at the chat because I'm doing the presentation. So it would be up to the person, but you do want people to log in ahead of time just to make sure, can they attach, can they connect, can they hear, can they talk if necessary. You also want to ask everybody to mute their phones, their audio, whatever it might be, because background noise will always come through. Even if they're like, oh, nobody's going to hear this, I'm just in my own place, there's nothing around, something's going to come through. And a lot of times it might even be feedback. So their microphone might pick up that they're being like the discussion coming through might get picked up again by the microphone. So we get like an echo effect there. So pretty much you want to make sure everybody mutes themselves. Now, in some cases, like with Zoom, you can actually mute everybody. Makes it very easy. Or if you have a teleconference system, you might be able to mute everybody on the teleconference system too. Even in Teams, you can go through and mute people. So that way, if there is background noise coming through, you mute them so we don't have to worry about that. You also remind them, oh, if they have a question, make sure you unmute yourselves, because a lot of times people forget that they are muted and they'll start asking the question there. Another important thing when it's one of these short sessions is to start on time. If I'm doing a 3-hour class, I might say, oh, we'll wait 5 more minutes for some people to arrive. But if I'm doing a 15-minute session, I can't wait 5 minutes because that's a third of the session right there. Even waiting like 1 minute can sort of cut out some time. I might run out of time there. So usually with these, you just start on time. As soon as it hits 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock or 12:30 or whatever it might be, you just start the session. And people are going to show up late. That happens. They're going to show up late. You just simply remind them, oh, don't worry, I will do a review of what I've talked about at the end. This is also being recorded. If you have questions, stay on, and then we can always go over maybe what you missed. So don't worry about that. Just start on time. People are going to come in late. Like I said, that's all right. You're just going to give a summary at the end. They can ask things when the question, or they can watch the recording. If you have a headset, that comes in very handy. If you have like an office or a meeting room or something, then you could actually do it like without the headset, maybe have speakerphone or speaker on the laptop and have the microphone if you have a laptop, or a microphone on a computer. But with the headset, you could be anywhere and you could be hearing it in your ears, talking on the headset, and that way you're not really disturbing other people around you if you're in a cubicle. So headsets come in very handy. Also, if it's on the phone itself, if you have a headset for the phone, that comes in handy too, so you don't have to be holding the receiver. It's only 10 or 15 minutes, but holding up a phone for 10 or 15 minutes can get a little tiring too. So if you can get a headset, that's usually a good idea there. And an important thing, especially if you're recording it or if you're doing it online like we are, where it's on the screen, is to turn off on-screen notifications. Set your phone to do not disturb. I've been doing some of these training classes where I'll forget to do that. And then somebody will send me a Teams message. And so in the bottom corner of my screen, I'll get a little Teams prompt coming up saying, hey, you know, Brett wants you to do this or that, which it doesn't look that good in the session. Everybody else can read that. Same thing, maybe when an email comes in, it gives a little ping, or when a Teams message comes in, it gives a little ping, and that comes through on the audio. And one of the fun things about that is if everybody's using Teams or Outlook, when they hear that ping come through the audio, they think it's theirs. And so they start looking at their Outlook or their Teams, trying to see, hey, do I have a message here? So you want to try to mute all that. And your telephone, the same thing. If you put it on do not disturb, or at least lower the ringer, because somebody's going to call. They always do. And you don't want to have the ringing coming through, or even distracting you where you're looking to see who it is and then trying to think, well, should I answer this call or not? It's from a judge, but I'm doing this session here. So you want to turn all that stuff off so you can focus on just doing the session, and you don't have to worry about distractions or things popping up. And if it's a recording too, well, now you've got on the recording the Teams message popping up, or the email little warning popping up there, and the little pings and so forth. So that will be there for all eternity. So everybody who comes by can see, hey, this guy got a Teams message and I wonder if he ever responded to Brett or not. So that's the important thing. Turn off screen notifications. Do not disturb. If you have a cell phone, put that to vibrate. So once again, that won't come through either. So these are just tips. And a lot of these would be, if I was a live session, I would want to make sure, if I have my cell phone, I put it to vibrate, maybe wait only a few minutes, or review things if people come in late. Try not to go over everything there. All right. Anybody else have any questions there? All righty. Once again, if you have any, just feel free, raise your hand or send them in the chat. Now, I've mentioned this a little bit about who sets up the training or designs the training, and who also conducts the training here. Well, anybody who feels comfortable with it. Usually it's the person who knows the software or knows the method or knows how to use the tool that's the best person to be the trainer. Somebody could say to me, oh, we do this in CM and we think everybody should know how to do this in the case management system. Can you tell everyone how to do this? I'll show you the steps. And I could look at the steps, but there's a good chance that somebody's going to ask me a question that I don't know because I don't use CM. They do. So it'd be best if they are the ones who are doing the training. If they're the ones who log in and actually explain to everyone, I'm an operations person. I know how to use CM. I've been doing this, and this is something I have found to make it easier when we do this. Or this is something that's newly been added because we're up on next gen and they just added a new feature. So here's how to use this new feature. So it's the person who knows how to do it is usually the best one. The person who uses that tool, the person who's comfortable with it, should be the one who does the presentation. And we've had people from the training department, we've had people from operations, we've had people from IT, from chambers, anybody at the court. Even had like 3 or 4 people one time who wanted to do a session, and they were from different parts of the court, and that was fine. They would just take turns, each one right after the other. So each would talk about their item, and it would go from one to the next, to the next, to the next. One was an analyst, one was a supervisor, and one was, again, someone who had to deal with security. And so they just went and they worked together. It wasn't like them telling me or somebody else to do everything themselves. It was the 3 of them, and each one would just do their part. This online method a lot of times makes it so people feel less nervous. You're not standing up in front of a classroom. You're not looking into people's faces a lot of times. You're actually just looking at your computer screen. Now here in Zoom, there's a gallery where you could see people if they have their video turned on, or on Teams, you might be able to see people too if they have their video turned on, but usually you're just looking at your computer screen. So you're maybe reading your notes, or you don't have to worry that people are staring at you, because officially you may not have your video on either. It might simply be like here, where I have this PowerPoint slides and you're able to see the PowerPoint slides. A lot of times people will be using online like software or something that they're just trying to show the steps to how to use this software or how to do this in this software, these tools. And so it's mainly their screen that people are looking at. So people don't have to worry as a presenter that I'm looking at a bunch of people or that they're looking at me. All I'm doing is talking to a computer, which has a little camera and a microphone, and I don't know who else is there watching. For all I know, there may not be anybody watching. So the person as the presenter is not as nervous as they would be if you put them in front of a room. And you can also say, well, you don't have to do a live session. We'll just do a recording, and let's record it. And if there's a mistake, we'll just record that part over and maybe we'll edit it later. So anybody can do the training. You should have one person who is, once again, organizes or like announces the training, but anybody can come up with the training, can put the training together, and can conduct the training and be the presenter there. So that's not limited to just someone who's like, oh, they have to be, once again, HR or the training department. Okay. Now, I've mentioned this. Does it have to be done live? Can it just be recorded? And the answer is yes. The original Art of Possible series were done live. They were done live online but that way you could ask your questions. You didn't have to just attend the recording. They were all recorded and then made available to everybody else, so the questions were recorded in, so people could listen to those. Recordings could also be edited afterwards. So if there was a mistake, or if there's more than one presenter and you want to put that all together, or if the topic requires like too much time to be in 15 minutes, such as if I was showing somebody how to convert an Outlook, no, sorry, not an Outlook, a PowerPoint slideshow into a video format, so you could be shown as a video. I would say, oh yeah, you go to File, you can go to Export, you can export it as a video. But then it's going to take several minutes for it to actually convert. And I don't want to just be sitting there for several minutes during the training while it's converting. So instead of doing a live presentation, this would be something that could be recorded, and then that part could be edited out. So it's simply, here you go, click on this, and you'll see down here, it's going to tell you that you've got some time, and then you cut that out, and then here's the result. So the recording made it nice because you could cut it up and correct mistakes, edit out mistakes, put people, 3 or 4 people together who recorded at different times, and you could send that out. You also might want to put in a lead in, maybe a special message from the clerk of court or the chief judge, or maybe a lead out. So at the end, to sort of recap what happened. Lead in could just be vocal, or it could actually be like the person. Let me actually just bring in for a second this here. I won't show it right now. I'll talk about it later, but here's the training. You can sort of see 2 slides here. That was actually the training itself. And you'll see at the beginning and the end, these lead-ins and lead-outs is where the speaker here comes in and sort of introduces it. And yes, this is actually me. That's what I look like, but you can also see me through Zoom anyway. So this is one of our Art of the Possible series, which is how to use the alternate host in Zoom, the alternative host, I believe it's called. And it was just simply, you would have the speaker, myself, the presenter, say what's going to be talked about in the session. And then it would go into how to turn this thing on in Zoom. And then it would just come out to the end where it's just discussing what was discussed in the session. So let me get that out of the way for now. Just giving you a little idea there. Okay, so that would be adding a lead in or maybe a lead out there for the presentations. So it could be done live. It doesn't have to be. Eventually, a lot of the Art of the Possibles were just recordings because we didn't always have a live session for lawyers and the people in the public. So we just recorded those to put them on YouTube so people could view them that way. So internally, we would once again usually have them live. So that would allow our own staff to ask questions, and we can make the recordings available after that. But wait, you say, wait, I don't have a video editor. How am I supposed to edit these recordings here? How do I do that? Well, you don't have to have a video editor, and you don't even have to be a video editor too. A lot of the online meeting software will have the record feature. Teams has it, Zoom has it, but you'll probably, as I mentioned, need to trim either the beginning or the end, because a lot of times you'll start recording before the session begins, and then the recording might continue after the session. So you might want to cut off a few minutes at the beginning or the end. Sometimes though, you record more than one session and you realize, hey, the first half of this session was good, but the second half of this session was good too. So let's put those together. If you're trying to do the lead-ins or the lead-outs, as I was just pointing out in that PowerPoint there, you might need to use a cell phone or something to record that person speaking. So you may not have a camera. Some courts might. They might actually have a video camera. They might have an audio-visual department who can record it for you. But if you don't, the thing I was just showing you just a moment ago, that was just simply on my iPhone that I put on the back of the judge's chair in their courtroom and just film myself. So it's just a person, me, just filming myself for those items there. And a cell phone can't do basic editing. With a cell phone, you can usually trim off like the beginning or the end of the video. It's not that accurate, but you can trim off a little bit. If you're recording something on the computer screen, such as I'm doing training for a piece of software, and I just want to show where my mouse is moving and what I'm clicking on and what it opens up, I might use a program such as Snagit. Snagit takes screenshots. So it usually takes a picture of your screen, but it can also take a video. And that way you can use that to track where your video or where your mouse is going and record that. And Snagit can also cut off the beginning of the end, but it also is not that accurate. I myself have found PowerPoint to be very easy to use and to be a good video editor. It's not the greatest. It's not going to give you all the options that a true video editor will, but you can actually use PowerPoint to put some recordings together and edit them. And you can even cut out like the middles and things of parts and add in, it's like, oh, let me have an arrow appear here or a circle appear here. And then you can record that, edit it, and then make it into a video through PowerPoint itself. PowerPoint has different video functions that you can use for recording new audio over an old video or putting in a picture over something. So as long as you are comfortable using PowerPoint, you can actually use that as a video editor, and it's not too difficult to use. You can even change the volume slightly within those, and we'll talk a little bit about this in just a moment there. This is, if you can see here, these are PowerPoint's video editing tools. If I bring a video into PowerPoint, I'll get two tabs in PowerPoint. One's video format and one's the playback tab. And the video format tab allows me to do some corrections, like for color on the video. I could put in what's known as a poster frame. A poster frame just means instead of showing the first scene in the video, you could actually just have a picture there instead. You could put a frame around the videos. You could even change the video shape. So instead of a rectangle, it looks like a circle or an oval. And you can crop out parts. This cropping came in handy when I had a video recorded that a Teams message had popped up at the bottom, and I wanted to remove that. So I actually cropped out the bottom part of the video. Fortunately, it didn't affect anything else in the video. This is the playback tab where I can do things like trim the video, fade in or out, change the volume, play full screen, say when the video is going to start, have the video loop around until I tell it to stop there. So these are some tools that are available inside of PowerPoint for you to play with. And let me actually bring back the one I had a moment ago there, because I use that in here. This itself is just a slide that this video is added to. And if I click on this video, you'll be able to see I have my video format and playback tab suddenly appear. If I come to the playback tab, I might say I need to trim this video. And if I click on trim video, it'll show the entire video, and I can move this green thing to say, well, where does it start? And move this red thing to say, where does this video end? So if this is all the way at the beginning, I might say, well, the first few seconds are just me trying to adjust the camera. And so I'll just move that in until I feel comfortable that that's a good place to start just before I start talking. And then I can end it here. And then this other video was actually just a continuation. It's the same video, but this one I just started later on. And I cut out a whole bunch here, once again, where I was doing tests, or maybe I made a mistake and I said the wrong word. So I just kept recording, and then I just removed all of that. And these guys here in the middle, this one is a video also where I just had it. So this circle appeared and this circle appeared too. So they would pop up. And if I click on this one here, go to the animations, let me actually open up my animation pane for a moment. You'll see like this first rectangle, it waits about 30 seconds or 37 seconds for the video to play before it actually pops up. And then this other rectangle waits about 54 seconds and then it pops up. And then I also have a little thing here that, so this first one, it'll appear after 37 seconds, but then after about 9 seconds more, so 46 seconds, it'll disappear. And then this little guy will appear a few seconds later at 54 seconds, and then it'll disappear at about after a few seconds there, like about 3 seconds later. I did find out a limitation in PowerPoint was that if I wanted to do this, where I had circles appearing over things or arrows, I had to, I could not wait more than a minute. I could not delay it more than a minute. So this one appearing after 37 seconds is fine. This one appearing after like 54 seconds or whatever is fine. But if something was longer than a minute before it had to appear, I could not actually do that in PowerPoint. And so I would have to do is trim this video, going back to playback, saying I wanted to trim the video, stop it, and then I would have to put the video on a next slide. And then I would go back and trim this video so it started a little bit later, and then I could have it so the item appearing would pop up at the right time, or in this case, it would actually just disappear. So there were some limitations, but it did allow me to add these little circles for them to show up. Another thing too is that I had to make sure this choice, play full screen, was not selected when I had these videos running, because they would actually cover up the circles and stuff. So I would not be able to see them when I had play full screen running. So if you do this in PowerPoint, use that as your editor, instead of using that full screen mode, which is under the playback tab, all I usually do is just insert the video, and I'll just basically stretch it out to fill up as much as the slide as possible. And you might notice I put a black background on the slide too. So that way, if it doesn't fill up the slide fully, you just see black strips on the side. And so those were a few things I learned about. And then in PowerPoint, I could just simply go to File, Export, and then I could just create a video based on that, and it would make the video for me. All right, let me get this guy out of the way again. That's just to show you a little bit about the video editing tools there. Now, let me actually bring in somebody else here, just to maybe show you quickly how to actually do this in PowerPoint. So here, I have a 48-second video clip that I filmed on how to use the dictate tool. And I did it just for this session. And during this, I will make a few mistakes, and I'll show you how to go into PowerPoint and how I would just put this in PowerPoint and edit it out. So let me just start it so you can see what it looks like. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today we're going to talk about the dictate tool in Microsoft Word. This tool will allow you to speak and see your typing directly on the page. So first thing I'm going to do is just turn on the tool. And it's right here. So I'm on the Home tab, and here's the dictate tool right here on the end of the Home tab. And I'll click on it to, this is just to change the language. So I'm on the Home tab here, and I'm going to come right to the dictate tool and click directly on the little microphone here. And it'll turn itself on, and now it's ready for me to go. And that's the dictate tool. Okay, so that itself was just showing you I had made a small recording, but I had made some mistakes with it as I was trying to go through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit that by using PowerPoint here. So let me just make a new blank presentation here in PowerPoint. And I'll simply say I want to insert, I'll go to my Insert tab, say I want to insert a video on my PC. And then I just have to go to wherever I have saved this video itself. And this video is just on my desktop, but it might take a moment here because I've got PowerPoint running in the background. And it's this one, the dictate tool. So I'll bring that in. And here it is. So I brought in the dictate tool. It's pretty much not going to fill up the whole screen. I'm going to have this stuff on the side. So once again, I might go to my Design tab in PowerPoint and say I want to give a black background here, just so it looks a little nicer. And then I know I have to cut out the middle of this. I might trim the beginning and the end, but I know I have to cut out something in the middle. So what I'm going to do is just come to my PowerPoint slide and duplicate it. So I have two slides that already have the video and the background. I'll go to this first one, and here, let me make this a little bigger so it's easier for everyone to see. I'll come, switch back to that there. And actually, I guess I have to drag it down because I got my Zoom tools in the way here. So what I'll do is I'll come up, click on the video, come up to the playback tab. And here in the playback tab, I'll say I want to trim the video. And here in the trim video, I can actually just start doing the playback. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today we're going to talk about the dictate. And so I think, okay, that's all right. I'll leave that. Now the question is though, where is it where I get lost? And I can actually sort of click and drag through here to see my mouse moving. Or I can look in here on this little line. It's hard to see on your side probably, but there's little waves up and down, and I can see flat places, knowing, and that will tell me, well, I stopped talking at that point. So I might come
on the
through,
tool.
and now this is where I'm looking for that tool where I don't find it. So I want to stop somewhere around here where I know, okay, this is where I say I'm going to look for the tool.
And see you're typing directly on the page. So first thing I'm going to do is just turn on the tool.
Okay, so I'll say I'll stop this one here, which is at about 13 seconds. And so I can just drag this little red thing all the way over until it's about that 13 seconds. And I have, this is the beginning, this is the end, and I can even sort of go up and down a little bit there as necessary. And then I'll just say, okay. And I'll try to remember, where I stopped this one. I'll say, okay, and then I would just go to the next one, click on that video, go back to playback, say I want to trim my video. And the same thing, I would actually drag the beginning of this up until where I figured out where the tool was, somewhere around here.
And I'm going to come right to the dictate tool.
So I'll just move that back just slightly.
Home tab.
Almost
here.
there.
So I'm on the home
And
tab.
that's pretty much to the end, should be okay. So I'll say okay to that. So now I've got both of these set up. So one starts and then ends partway, and the other picks up a little bit later and then continues. And what I can do is I can now go to File, Export, and I could just simply say, hey, I want to create a video based on that. I could make it like high definition or low definition. It doesn't really matter. And then I can create my video, and I'll just save it in that same folder there. I'll just leave the name as presentation. And then down here at the bottom, you'll see it starts to create it for me. And that's going to take a few minutes. It depends on how long your video is. If your video is less than a minute, then it's going to take about a minute to make. If your video is longer, it's going to take, it's pretty much depending on how long your video is, that's about how long it's going to take to compress and to make this. And I'm just going to get him out of the way. He's off on the side as he converts the video there, and I'll get this little guy out of the way. And that's going to just put it together for me. Very simple. If I know how to use PowerPoint, that'll get me in there. I can put the video, do some basic editing, and then once the video is ready, I can bring it out. And so the video itself is ready. It's finally done it. Let me open it up. And here it is. It should be a bit shorter. The other one was about 43 seconds, I think it was. And now this one is going to be a little shorter.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today we're going to talk
seconds.
about the dictate tool in Microsoft Word. This tool will allow you to speak and see you're typing directly on the page. So first thing I'm going to do is just turn on the tool. So I'm on the home tab here, and I'm going to come right to the dictate tool and click directly.
Now, did anybody even notice there was a cut there? You might notice the mouse jumps a little bit, but for the most part, people aren't going to notice there was any cut or anything. So PowerPoint was able to make that very easy for me, sort of a smooth transition. It depends on what's on the screen or what you're trying to show. But once again, it can be used to link up video with people to a computer video and so forth. And we just looked at that trim tool. We could trim the videos by cutting out beginnings and ends, just focusing on parts. Sort of the same thing here is these. This is the same video where the first slide is just this portion of the video, and then the second slide is just this portion. So you can make a long video and then use PowerPoint to cut it up and then put it all together there. Okay. This is just a sample. This one's like 10 minutes. I'm not going to play all of it. I'm just going to play a little bit, and then we'll talk a little bit more. So I'll just play this for about a minute or so.
Hello and welcome to the T-15 sharing screens with Teams. Today we'll just take a quick look at how to share your screen with somebody else while using Microsoft Teams. You might want to share your screen because you're doing an online meeting, and you might want to show somebody a document that you have open. Maybe work together on a spreadsheet, or maybe somebody's having some trouble with their computer and you're trying to explain to them what they need to do. And if they're having difficulty, you can actually go and help them out by having them share their screen. Then you can see what they're looking at, and you can even take control to a point if they allow it, so you can do things to their screen or to their documents. So we're going to take a quick look at this and see. So
that
now,
was
let me
the first part where I mentioned earlier that you tell them what you're about to tell them. And then the rest of this video is going through to show how to share the screen with this person at the court. And then at the very end, there would be just a recap. of what we discussed there. So it's just showing you, this is how to do the Art of Possible sessions there. That would be a live one that was recorded, but then could be edited up later. Let me just get that guy out of the way there.
Hello and welcome to the
All right. So we've got about 15 minutes left here. Does anybody have any questions on anything at the moment? We do a little exercise. Just for right now, just take a couple of minutes. Think about something at your court. It doesn't have to be at your court, it could be anywhere. But think about some tool or method of working that that might benefit others. Do you know how to do something in a piece of software? Do you know how to file something? Do you know how to use some tool that you think would make a benefit for others? If it is, what is that tool? What is that method? What is it that you can do? Who would it help? Who is your target audience? And what examples can you use to get people interested? So just take about maybe a couple of minutes there. Just think to yourself, if you want, write it down for yourself. And what is the tool? What do I have? What do I know? What can I train others about? Who's going to be interested in it? And how can I make them excited about it? What kind of examples can I use to make them interested in this? And when you've come up with that idea, when you've come up with the tool or method, you've come up with who would it help, when you have maybe an example, how would you put together your training? This is your pitch that you would give. You would introduce yourself, title of your presentation. You would talk about the benefits of using this tool or method. You'd go through the steps of accessing the tool and the method, and you would summarize what you just covered. And then you would ask for questions. So we're focusing on sort of the shorter training where we're just focusing on one or two items. So maybe it's 10, 15 minutes long. And you want to come up with, okay, how do I present myself or introduce myself? What's the title of my presentation? So I want to tell people what I'm going to tell them, and I want to tell them, and then I want to tell them what I just told them, and then I can ask for questions. So just take a moment for that too, to put that together with your item. Now, if you don't have an item right now, you don't have tools, that's fine. This might be something you want to think about later as you go about your daily day at work there. You might come up with it saying, hey, the way I do this, I think others should know. Or maybe it's not the way you do it. Maybe it's the way somebody else does it. Like, the way you do that, I think other people in the court should know. Or you use that software in such a way that I had never thought of. Or you know how to do this in Excel or in Word or whatever the program might be that I think other people will find interesting and helpful there. And if so, maybe you can convince them to make something possible. Now, let me throw it out there. Does anybody out there actually want to share something that they think, oh yeah, this is something that I think might be helpful to others? Because here on this meeting, this training itself, you might actually help other people there. They might say, oh, I never thought of that, but you're right. That's something that we could use at our court too. So let me just throw it out. Anybody out there want to share something such as a tool or method that they think might be good to share with everybody else in their court? Or it could even be other courts, or it could even be the public. Who would it help, and what examples you might be able to use to get people interested? Anybody at all? If so, just raise your hand. You throw it up high in the air so we all know. It's a little difficult to do it on Zoom. Usually it goes well like inside a classroom session where we could all sit down and sort of brainstorm together. Here in Zoom, it's a little bit different there. If you come up with an idea, just raise your hand out there or put it in the chat for others. But once again, This simple thing is, what is my tool? What is my method I want to share? Who is it going to help? And what examples do I have to get people interested? So once again, the dictate tool that I've thrown up a couple of times there. We just made that little short video and edited that. What is the tool? Well, it's the dictate tool that goes in Microsoft Word. Who would it help? Well, it would help people who type a lot, who might want to just be able to talk to their computer. Of course, they'll need a microphone, so either a laptop or a headset. But this way they can avoid doing all the typing, especially if they have like carpal tunnel or they have difficulty typing. It might be beneficial for them. And what examples can you give to get people interested? Well, I mean, there's a couple of examples right there. If you have difficulty typing, if you have carpal tunnel syndrome, you might want to use the dictate tool in Microsoft Word or in Outlook, and then you can show them how to utilize that tool. All right, and once again, the pitch, this is the same thing we had mentioned earlier. This is basically how the training would be presented, where you introduce yourself, title the presentation, you talk about the benefits of whatever it is you're going to show people, you show them, go through the steps, discuss it, tell them what you do, then you summarize everything you've just covered, and then you ask for questions from them in case they have any. And once again, we usually save the questions for the end, just because the training is going to be short. It's not going to, so we don't want to interrupt the flow of the 10 or 15-minute training by getting bogged down in somebody who has like one question after another or has something in depth. That'll be difficult to explain, and then it sort of cuts into the rhythm of the training. But if that does happen and you do have a recording, you could always edit that part out with something like PowerPoint, or if you do have a video editor, you could do that too. All right. There, you might get some resources too from the Systems Development and Support Office. That's the training division for the AO. You just go to their training.sdso.ao.dcn. And here there's a lot of instructor-led training that's available online from them, or online resources too. So you can look up information here through this, and you can even write to them, ask questions. But they have things on computer training, stuff like programs like Microsoft Word or Outlook, Genie, but also things on travel and different types of resources. So as somebody at the court who wants to do training, if you can't think of something, you can always look here, try to see if there's some ideas for you, and you can also share their videos and so forth. So what have we done here? Well, we have talked about the art of possible. We have the tools, but what are the possibilities? We went through, well, what is the art of possible itself? It's a training series. What kind of training is done? Short little sessions, short little vignettes, 15 minutes usually. Could be longer, could be shorter, but usually focusing on one item or maybe a couple of items to make it a quick type of training. Could be done by anybody who wants to do the training, who knows the subject, knows the topic, and it could be done live, it could be recorded, it could be both. Usually it would be both, where you have the live session, recording. You would have just a few things to focus on. People could attend during lunch, online, at their computers, tune in, get back to work. In fact, when we originally did the T-15 model, and still during the art of possible, the tagline at the end was always, that's your 15 minutes, now get back to work. So you have like a little tagline, you maybe have a logo that goes with it. We have the tools, what are the possibilities would be the tagline for the art of possible. It can be for internal, it can be for external, different ways to put it together. And so basically you're just limited by your imagination, but you want to get people excited and interested to say, hey, you have this thing out there, but here's something you probably didn't know about, or here's a way to do something that maybe you didn't think of. This is what is possible with that tool the court has provided you. We provided you with Microsoft Word to utilize to do documents and things, but did you know you could do this? Did you know you could just simply talk to your computer and it would print it up for you? Here you have Microsoft Excel for spreadsheets. Well, instead of attending a 3-hour class, why don't you come here and tune in online for 10 or 15 minutes, and I'll show you how to sort and filter information, or I'll show you how to make your own special kind of advanced formulas. So those are the things you want to get people interested in, instead of just simply saying, oh, it's just this class with a whole bunch of stuff. Here's 1 or 2 items that I think will help you. Come on, listen in, see what you can do. And if you miss it, we'll have it recorded later. So also on the screen, you'll see my contact information once again. If you want, you can write me, send me an email. I'll respond to you. You know, look me up in the directory, give me a call there, and you know, I'll actually answer the phone if I'm available there. All right, looks like we have somebody in the chat there. What's the chat here? Okay. The chat says, I think this would be great for operations to teach case administrators a procedure or using a tool in Outlook or SharePoint. Well, that's a very great idea, Tonya. That's a good idea there. You can use it for anything, but see, you're thinking now, you're thinking the right thing. What's possible? What can we do? How can we show people how to do it? So that's a great idea. Thanks for sharing that. Anybody else, if you have questions or if you have like an idea like that, you know, share it in the chat so people here in the session can see it and discuss it that way. Or, you know, just talk amongst yourselves in the court when you're ready. And I'm sure you're going to be able to come up with a lot of fun ideas. Does it have to be any particular way? No, it's yours. It's your training series. You get excited over it. You launch it. Tell people it's coming. Put articles in the newsletter. Send out email blasts. Let everybody know what's out there. And have a lot of fun. That's the most important part. Have fun with it. And get you 15 minutes of fame, shall we say. All right, everyone. Well, thanks for coming. That was the Art of the Possible. Or I should say Art of Possible. The Art of Possible. I got to remember which series. This is the internal one as opposed to the external. This is the Art of Possible. I'm Patrick Cohane. I've been your host. Have a great day, everyone. I'll stay on if you have any other additional questions. So. Thanks for coming. And we are out.
All right, let me stop the recording.
Thanks a lot, Joanne.
Great job, Patrick.
Thanks. I hope you guys actually enjoyed it and thought it was worth your time.